Gives me a lot of pleasure to see everyone's faces out here night after night, the consistency, the steadfastness. So well done for everyone. Since October 7th, I know that we have all been seeing news from Palestine that by the minute, by the hour, is more and more horrifying. Israel has clearly decided to drop the curtain on their genocidal intentions and make clear to everyone the intention of their project from the beginning. It is also very clear that our leaders are hoping that the scale of this tragedy, that the horrors that we're seeing will be too much, that we'll become inured to the tragedy, that we will not be able to mobilize because we are paralyzed. But here we are on the 66th day of this disaster. In the cold, in the rain, we're coming out every night. We will not let up until our elected officials are accountable to the voices of the American people, accountable to basic decency and humanity, and raise their voices for a ceasefire. We will not let the harrods of power continue their business as usual, while human beings, men, women, children, are being indiscriminately slaughtered. Where we have gathered tonight, we're very close to Representative Hakeem Jeffries' office, just a few blocks away. Representative Jeffries yields an enormous influence on American policy on Palestine. As the House Minority Leader, he has a significant influence on which Democrats receive funding. And as the would-be Minority Leader, this would give him a lot of power to determine which bills even are being brought to be voted on in the House. And yet, every time that Jeffries has been given the chance to speak up, to take the stance of morality, to stand with humanity, he has chosen to side with a genocidal, ethnic cleansing regime. In February, Representative Jeffries dismissed an Amnesty International report that Israel is in fact an apartheid regime. He opposed a bill that would prevent Israel from using American weapons to forcibly dispossess Palestinians. He has categorically refused the clear evidence of genocide and ethnic cleansing taking place in Gaza today. Sometimes power is obscure. In this case, it is very simple. As a powerful Democrat, he does stand to enact a ceasefire if he raises his voice with his constituents. Ceasefire now! But we don't have to look very far to see why it is that a man would turn his back so completely on decency and humanity. And the answer is money. Shame! His biggest contributors are Israel-aligned PACs, and he has made himself a figurehead of Israeli propaganda as such. So we are here tonight to demand Hakeem Jeffries to raise his voice with the voice of the American people, with the voice of his constituents, and say no more. Tonight, our demands to Hakeem Jeffries are as follows: to immediately co-sponsor Representative Cori Bush's House Resolution 786, calling for an immediate ceasefire and de-escalation in Gaza. We are calling for Representative Jeffries to sever his deep economic ties to Israel-aligned PACs. And we ask him to reject being a figurehead of this propaganda regime. So thank you again for coming. Thank you for your energy. We're going to have a few people speak before we move on to march. So first up, we're gonna have with us my good friend Seema. They are a multidisciplinary creative, musician, tattoo artist, you name it. So my pleasure to have Seema up to speak. Thank you for yourself.
Thank you all for being here. I'm here before you today as a queer person and as an Arab American. So thank you for being here and for showing up every single day for the past 66 days of continuous action. It's been 66 days, but it's been over 75 years of resistance. Every single day we wake up and we choose resistance. We resist normalizing the continuous genocide of a small, brave people by the largest military powers in the world. We refuse to forget our history. The anniversary of the first Intifada was just a few days ago. And as queer people, we come from a beautiful lineage of resisting oppression. We have learned, we have learned from our queer ancestors how much power a brick can hold. At the right moment, at the right time, in the hand of someone who has been oppressed for far too long. And we know how to sustain a movement, as our elders who fought against AIDS all through the 80s and 90s did in this city. And we know that family is not just the family that we were born into, but it is every single person who is united with us in the struggle for freedom. And with this knowledge, we look to our siblings in Gaza, and we cannot turn away from their suffering. And we will never let our lives as queer people be co-opted to pinkwash genocide. It is the duty of every single living, breathing person to fight for our freedom. Because we know that our struggles are intertwined. We know that we are not free until all people are free. And we know that we are not free until Gaza is free. And we know we are not free until all of Palestine is free. We, as we stand here, have a very important role to play in the fight for global liberation. We stand in the very belly of the beast. We stand here while our identities are being weaponized against us to justify genocide, forced displacement, and ethnic cleansing. We refuse to turn away. Because turning away would mean turning on ourselves and what we know to be true at the very core of our beings.
That's right.
The same language that is used to pass anti-trans bills in this country is used to justify genocide. The same language that excuses the murder of our black and brown sisters here is used to justify genocide. Our enemy is the same, and that could not be any more clear. They want us to be tired, but we get stronger every single day. Right now, I want each and every one of you to look around to the people who are next to you. Thank you. And always remember that we are not alone. We are powerful beyond belief. Who keeps us safe? Who keeps us safe? Free, free Palestine!
Free, free Palestine!
Free, free, free Palestine!
Free, free, free Palestine!
And please join me in inviting our next speaker. Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Basel, and I'm a queer and trans Palestinian. My grandfather survived the Nakba of 1948, and now for the past 2 months, the occupation has been committing yet another Nakba in Gaza. In the past 2 months, more Palestinians have been murdered and displaced than the Nakba my family survived in 1948. I want to tell you about my aunt, Shireen Abu Akleh, may she rest in peace and power. She was a Palestinian journalist who dedicated her life to exposing the realities of Israeli apartheid and uplifting Palestinian voices. She was murdered by an Israeli soldier while she was reporting on the Israeli military massacres and ethnic cleansing in Jenin. Israeli snipers clearly saw her press vest and helmet and shot her in her face, the only exposed part of her body. Then they had the audacity to say that Palestinians were the ones who shot her, despite multiple eyewitnesses. They attacked the procession carrying her coffin at her massive funeral in Jerusalem. And in the chaos of the past 2 months, the military bulldozed the street and memorial made for her at the site of her murder. After all this, they even had the audacity to say that she was armed with a camera. The UN, a few weeks ago, a whole year and a half after her murder, reported that Israeli forces used lethal force without justification. These findings are now too little too late. Israel has been using the same victim-blaming rhetoric during the past 2 months of brutal siege and bombardment in Gaza to dehumanize Palestinians as deserving of their own demise. The New York Times reprints this genocidal propaganda only to be quietly retracted weeks later, by then lost as old news. Israel has murdered more than 20,000 Palestinian civilians in the past 2 months in Gaza alone. There is no justification. The Israeli army is extinguishing entire bloodlines of Palestinians, children, parents, grandparents, grandchildren, aunts and uncles. Each person has a soul, a heart, dreams, hopes, hobbies, and the fundamental right to live and experience joy. Israeli soldiers actively target journalists and medical professionals because they want to silence Palestinian voices and devastate Palestinian bodies. Nowhere in Gaza is safe. Nowhere in Palestine is safe for Palestinians under the occupation. The Israeli government is intentionally trying to erase every aspect of Palestinian existence, but Palestine and Palestinians will always exist. We deserve the right to speak, to be a journalist, a medic, a poet, a child, a person, to tell our truths fully, mourn, and most of all, to live free. Do not forget the tens of thousands of people who are trapped under the rubble to this day, and the mass persecution of Palestinians across occupied Palestine. Do not forget about the mass incarceration of thousands of Palestinians who are held without charges, court dates, or legal representation. Thousands of children and adults are currently captured in military prisons where they are tortured with physical, sexual, and psychological violence and abuse and starved. Do not forget that these atrocities are funded by billions of our tax dollars. We are all complicit. I am forced to pay for the genocide of my own people. Each day we mourn thousands. May each Palestinian person killed by the occupation rest in power from Illinois to Palestine. In their honor, we must never give up on the fight for justice and liberation. As the Palestinian poet Rafat El-Arair wrote before he was targeted and martyred in the ongoing Gaza genocide, "If I must die, you must live to tell my story. If I must die, let it bring hope, let it be a tale." Thank you all for coming out and never give up the fight.